Welcome to Divorce Without Destruction Mediation Podcast.
Welcome to Divorce Without Destruction Mediation Podcast with Resolution Mediation. Tess, Worrell, and Hillary Sharpnack help Indiana couples navigate divorce and separation in a more peaceful, informed, and future-focused way through mediation. Instead of turning family conflict into a courtroom battle, they help people protect their children, preserve their finances, and create agreements that support life moving forward. I'm your host, Lisa Mosby, and today we're talking about one of the biggest questions people have during a divorce. Do you actually have to go to court in Indiana? Welcome, Tess. Welcome, Hillary. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Hello. Tess, let's start with a tough one. A lot of people assume divorce automatically means going before a judge. What does the divorce process actually look like in Indiana?
That's a great question. You're right. A lot of people wonder about that. And the answer is no. In fact, most divorces, whether in the adversarial process or in the collaborative process, don't end up going to court. Mm-hmm. In the more adversarial process, there may be some hearings that take place along the way. But for final settlement, it's a very small percentage, like 25% or less, that are actually decided by a judge. Most of the time, either the attorneys are negotiating a settlement on behalf of their clients, or like with us, the clients are creating their own settlements in the privacy of our office. And that's one of the big advantages of mediation is everything remains private.
And then can a couple complete the divorce process privately through mediation without ever appearing in court?
Yes. All of our couples finish kind of from start to finish. They go through the entire divorce process, the entire legal process using mediation from start to finish, where they never have to go to court. They're never setting foot inside of a courtroom. They're never setting, foot in front of a judge. Everything is done in the privacy of our office, like Tess said, from start to finish.
That's amazing that you don't ever have to appear in front of a court, a court representative in front of a judge. So what involvement does the court still have when a couple chooses mediation? Is there any?
Yes, the divorce is a legal process. When people marry, they effectively become like conjoined twins. They are one legal entity. Mm-hmm. So in Indiana, all their money, all their property, everything they had when they got married, and everything they've accumulated during marriage, no matter who brought it in, no matter whose name is on it, whether it's an asset or a liability, a debt, belongs to both of them. And so you need to go through a legal process to kind of separate into individual separate legal entities. And so even in mediation, it's a legal process. So we file the original documents, the petition for dissolution, and some other documents that go along with that with the court. And then when the mediation is finished, we filed what's called the settlement agreement, which contains all the decisions that people have made in the process of mediation, decisions around property, decisions around bank accounts, retirement, house, credit card debt, student loans, all of it is in that settlement agreement that gets filed with the court. The agreement is enforceable by the court, but again, the people never have to go to court. Mm-hmm. Everything is in the privacy of our office. The conversations are protected by confidentiality, which means people can be very transparent and open about different proposals they're making without fearing, if I say, I'm willing to do X, if you would do Y. Sometimes people don't even want to mention that for fear if we go to court, somebody's going to say, well, you're bound to doing X. And that can't happen. Nothing said in mediation can then be brought up in court. So, for example, if a parent shares, I'm a little concerned about my parenting time because I struggle with this or this, We can encourage them to be open and honest as they're building the parenting plan, because those concerns are never going to be brought up in court either. But the court process is to enforce agreements people create, but they never have to stand in front of the judge to get that to happen.
And then does that just include financial agreements? You also mentioned parenting plan. Is parenting plan part of that process and also part of the settlement agreement?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's everything, as Tess mentioned, from the financial side to the property side to the parenting side. And we also a lot of times will include different provisions that, maybe are around their lifestyle or maybe around certain aspects of kind of their co-parenting relationship that they want included in the agreement. Doesn't mean they're always necessarily legally enforceable or able to be legally enforced by the court, but it's still important for them to have in their agreement. So it's really everything, obviously on the legal side of things, all the legal issues, but it's really everything else that the parents or couple wants to also have included in the agreement.
So ultimately, do both spouses need to agree on every issue before in order to stay out of court? Or is that where your job comes in to help mediate and get them at least on the same page?
That's really the core of our job, Lisa. So thank you. A lot of time people believe we have to have our agreements in order to come to mediation, or even we just need to be getting along well to utilize mediation. And certainly we love the couples that are getting along well. That's a really nice day.
Makes our job a little bit easier.
It does. But we also love the couples in a very different way that aren't getting along, that have a lot of conflict, because the core of mediation training is how do you take people that are in very different places, have very different perspectives, and help them navigate to coming to an agreement, finding common ground, and being able to build a path forward together. And I think some of our most endearing clients or some of our most heartwarming cases are the cases where they got here, high conflict, almost not even able to look at each other. And by the end of the mediation process, at least they're able to walk out together. And often they're able to talk with each other, have conversation, really communicate with one another in very healthy and good ways. And that's one of the most satisfying parts of mediation for us.
I can see how people would benefit from it because court is so adversarial. Somebody's on one side, the other side, and it creates so much tension. And when you can actually sit down and have a mediator who's listening so you can process externally, I know for myself, just being able to talk through things makes so much sense. But from what you've seen, your experience, what kinds of disagreements or situations are more likely to push a divorce into the court system?
I think the times people are most likely to need a judge to step in and make decisions, or attorneys to step in and make decisions, is if someone's coming to the process with the goal of, I want to punish my spouse. Yes. I want to get my rights. I want to win in this case. Those people need to go to court because court is really gladiator versus gladiator. And if you want to go to battle, it's really good to hire a very accomplished gladiator. And that's what attorneys can do for you. Also, if there are people who just refuse to come to an agreement, and it's not even necessarily that they're trying to punish the other person, they just either mentally can't wrap their mind around how to make decisions, or they deep down just keep torpedoing the process because they're trying to keep the divorce from happening. It may take somebody else driving the process and getting to an end point. In Indiana, if one person wants the divorce will happen. And I think it's important for people to understand that, because I think there are still a lot of people who believe if I don't want this divorce, I can stop it. That's really not the case. Eventually, a decision will be made. So the real question is, who do you want making the decision? Do you want to have some say in how things move forward? Or do you want to have someone else telling you, here's how much money you get? Here's when you get to see your children. Do you want to be forced into a one-size-fits-all answer? Or do you want to be able to tailor what life looks like based on your own priorities, your own values? Often when we put it to clients that way, even the people are saying, I'm not going to participate, decide they do want to participate because they don't want to be told, here's how your life's going to move forward and have no say in it.
Yeah, you don't want to give up control. Just need some guidance sometimes to help walk through it. So, can people still speak with an attorney during mediation, even if they're trying to avoid litigation?
Absolutely. We always encourage, I mean, for us, a lot of our clients are never consulting with attorneys, don't ever feel they need to consult with attorneys. But we absolutely encourage and welcome attorney involvement if somebody feels they need that legal advice. Because again, as mediators, we cannot legally advise somebody, because once you kind of start taking on an advisory role, then you're kind of representing one person, not the other. And as mediators, we are, we can't represent either person. So we never want to try or to insinuate we can enter into that advisory role. But it's not just, attorneys. It's also if somebody needs advice on, the financial piece. And so maybe we're encouraging them to talk to a financial planner, or they need the value of the house. And so they're getting that advice from a realtor. So it's all different professions that we welcome into the process in order for people to be able to say, yes, I am making a fully informed decision. But in terms of actual attorney representation, yes, you can always seek, legal advice or guidance at any point in time. And really for us, if attorneys are involved, it's really when a client feels like I want somebody to review this agreement before I sign it. Now, we as mediators are walking through the agreement word by word, line by line with both parties to make sure that they fully understand all the legalese and all the legalities and everything, but also to make sure we wrote their agreement in a way that captures their decisions that they agreed to. So sometimes it's very appropriate if somebody says, I also want, an attorney to review this before I sign it, or I have some questions and I need somebody to advise me. Absolutely. We welcome them into that process.
Yeah, I can imagine situations, maybe tax consequences if there's a large estate and how you're splitting it up, or needing to sell the house immediately. And there's a number of areas where maybe expert advice would contribute to the optimum outcome. So that makes total sense. Thank you so much for sharing that, Hillary. What are some of the biggest practical differences between a mediation-centered divorce and a court-driven divorce?
Well, I think the biggest practical difference is the process. The court-driven process is very intentionally adversarial. It is person A versus person B. Attorneys' ethical obligation is to protect their client, advocate for their client, get the most they can for their client. Many attorneys do that with an eye of kind of how do we protect the whole family system as well. Other attorneys are there to be the advocate. They're like, my job is to take care of my client. Other side needs to take care of theirs. In our mediation process, it's meant to be collaborative. That doesn't mean they're buddy-buddy. That doesn't mean we're saying kumbaya at the end of every session.
We try. We really do. No.
We neither one can sing. So, but we are trying to build that ability for each person to understand the perspectives, the values, the priorities of the other person, or at least we're bringing both people's priorities, values into the conversation and looking for ways, how can we, as best as your circumstances allow, meet the highest priorities of both of you? And one of the wonderful moments in mediation that frequently happens is as we're helping people define, here's why I'm asking for this, to keep the house or to divide the retirement or to XYZ. as the other person here's why I'm asking for that, they will often say, oh, that makes sense. Well, what if we did it this way? And they're creating their own solutions. And that's what needs to happen, because if they own a business together and they want to keep owning that business together, if they have children, if they're remaining in the same faith community, small town, for most of these people, they are going to interact with each other in some way moving forward. So if they can come out of the divorce process as healthy and whole and able to relate to one another, that's a very different end result than you usually get in a litigated adversarial, let's have somebody win, somebody lose, pit you against each other for a year or 2 or 3 or 5. I think those are the biggest practical differences.
Ladies, I have this fantasy in my head as I'm listening to you that you're creating this safe space where each of them gets to be seen and heard. They get to listen and pay attention. Do folks ever get back together after they do mediation and not get divorced?
I love that you asked that.
Yeah, we actually recently, and I was just not bragging. I was using this as a celebration this morning in a networking meeting I was at. But we've recently had 3 couples who we've got really went through the entire process of mediation, got a settlement agreement. They were divorcing, and the 3 couples got to the point where we were ready to file the agreement with the court, and they said, you know what? I think we're going to give this another shot. We'd like to either, go do counseling, or we're going to, try to reconcile. But yeah, so, I mean, and we consider that a huge, huge win. Absolutely. So yeah, we certainly celebrate those moments.
And it's not unusual.
I'm glad I asked the question.
Yeah. It's also not unusual for couples in mediation who finalize their divorce to say, if we had come here 3 years ago and had these kinds of conversations, we wouldn't be getting divorced today. And so out of that, we've created what's called a couples mediation process for couples who don't want to divorce, but conflict is undermining their relationship. So they come in for mediation, conflict resolution, to get on the same page so that they can protect their marriage. And so that's what mediation can do for folks, is resolve the conflicts that are undermining how they work together.
This has been a beautiful episode, very enlightening. And thank you so much for walking us through this process and shining a light at the end of the tunnel that there's hope in the future of their relationship and engaging with each other, and hope that there's possible reconciliation. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Lisa.
That's it for today's episode of Divorce Without Destruction Mediation Podcast with Resolution Mediation. If you'd like to learn more about Tess Worrell and Hillary Sharpnack and the mediation services they offer across Indiana, visit resolutionmediationin.com. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to leave a review, and subscribe to the show so you don't miss the next episode. We'll see you there.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.